Perfecto. And I'm very happy that it works quite well, that the people are putting their names in the table, because this is all about sharing. Last times we were sharing actually in Cologne what our plans and our ambitions are. Even if half of the last session was used to introduce ourselves a bit, as we are just a few people, maybe we can have just briefly introduced the ones that are right new. Marta, did you join last time as well from Polytechnical?
No, unfortunately
Mm.
not. I think none of us was present due to
I guess, yeah.
lectures and class. Yeah. So nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Marta Corubolo. I'm working in the design department of Politecnico di Milano together with Anna Meroni and Davide Fassi, who are in class now. Today it's Monday, it's a bit tricky, but I'm happy to be here with you. We work mainly on service and spatial design applied to the food sector,
Hmm.
and we work through co-design, participatory methodologies, and we are currently running two applied research projects. One is connected with National Funds for Resilience, so the Next Generation EU. It's called On Food, and it's
Hmm.
Italian-based project. And the other one are more applied again, action on the Milanese context through what Politecnico called off campuses, so spaces, kind of living lab, space-based spaces around the city in Milan. One, he's actually was inside a food market, a covered food market in Milan. So we work a lot on recovery and redistribution of food surplus and food waste, and it's currently ongoing, plus a series of other kinds of actions around the local food chain in Milano.
Okay.
Just a brief, I don't know if I need to add something since I wasn't there,
I think
but
there's a lot of things to add. As Anna told me, she has to leave in 45 minutes. I want
oh,
to sort of just respond with a kind request. Maybe as Milan is so important globally, many people are connected to Milan. Many people, I mean, just look at Francesca, for example. Um, and so maybe you find the time to use one of the, if you look in the table, to briefly share what you're doing, because I think that would be super important, and then we can learn from that. And
okay.
maybe briefly, Anna from Cologne, from the University of Cologne. We have two universities, and I'm really aiming at working together with the University of Cologne because they have what we do not have, and maybe the other way around. And sometimes you have to travel far to work with the people that are living next door. That worked for me with Babette, but and I'm keen to have you here as well, Anna. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Anna Heinemann. I work at the University of Cologne at the Department of Didactics of Biology. And I'm in charge of the garden that we have that is called MOMO, Modularer Modellgarten. So it's like more like showing teachers what a school garden could be like.
Mhm.
In the beginning, we were focused on vegetables a lot, like carrots and stuff, like things that grow in one year. But because it's so much effort, we are more focused on things that, yeah, like berry trees,
Mm.
apple trees. We have different trees that we. So it's more like the idea of a food forest. It's not really forest. It's small and like really tiny. But that's my idea because lots of schools don't have that time, but still there's a lot you can do when you're not so much into, I don't know, picking potatoes and carrots and tomatoes and so on.
Mhm.
So I'm in charge of the garden and I also give classes in the garden for the students and I also give workshops for teachers that work in schools already and are interested in gardening.
Mhm.
So that's
That's
what I do.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, welcome and super helpful as we're working with a super engaged school in the immediate neighborhood, actually, where we will not only get the kids, but also the parents and the teachers. So there are a lot of cross references. Okay, perfecto. So maybe we can proceed with other final introductions, maybe after Anna Davis. I don't know how much time you planned for sharing, but I
Yeah,
think we will
hopefully I'll
all.
be all right. I should be taking about 15 minutes, maybe. I
Okay,
don't
that's
think it's going to be very
perfect.
long.
Okay, so maybe let's go back to Milan, but now being in Tonji, Francesca, great that you are here. You are running a thesis lab in Tonji, if I get it right, and you're pretty much involved in food systems in Tonji as well.
Yes, so I'm not running the disease lab here, but I'm a very active participant, and I'm based in Shanghai in Tongji, and I was like my work here in Tongji started with a big project of about sustainable agriculture in Chongming Island that ran for many years. And I've been connected to food network, like sustainable food network, also in urban context with the like through the years. I'm talking about like a 10, 15 year span. And more recently, I'm trying to go back to that. So one of the reasons why we also got in touch is like for this European call, we tried to do something a couple of years ago with a lot of people that are listed in our group as well, and it didn't pass.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, we of course have good idea, and that's more like agroecology at large. And I also try to do some local projects. One is looking at fermentation as a community slash social dynamic. So how like through the production of food and the cycle of the fermentation, things can happen at the urban level for not only for food production but also for knowledge sharing. And more recently, let's see, I'm in contact with a urban bee, like a urban bees association, and so we are trying to work on installing, like bringing beehives, starting from the school with a pilot project. This is like a long-term passion of mine that I wanted to explore for many years, and maybe finally I found the right connection. So I hope that maybe we can like work on that too.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. So basically, there's no DESIS lab in Germany. So I talked to the colleagues from DESIS, mostly Teresa Franquera, also to use our project as a DESIS lab. And the thing with the beehives also resonates a lot with me. I think our sister initiative in Cologne has beehives, and Anna, your colleague Alex Vollmann, is doing beehives there. And we also have on the list a colleague that I got to know from Brazil, but he's in France and he's doing smart technology for beehives, to put it short. And it's super interesting also to communicate what beehives are doing and understanding them also as indicators for what to harvest. So this might be another sort of nice connection as well.
And
Uh,
I also wanted to mention, I wanted to ask, I mean, I guess the answer could be a yes, but there is a very dear friend and colleague that moved recently to Hong Kong PolyU, and he was formerly in Johannesburg, and he was like kind of the director of the DESIS lab there, and has been like working for decades on food network and food project in Africa, and then he moved to New Zealand for a few years, and now he's at Hong Kong PolyU, and I think he would be like a perfect person to have in this group. I don't know how like it can be like if this is something that could be interesting. I think it would be like a very valuable contribution.
Very easy, just share. But if you could sort of introduce us, it would be super interesting because I will be
Yeah.
in Johannesburg in 2.5 weeks, and I will go to
Okay.
PolyU in March. So I think this connection
Perfect.
could be
Maybe
super interesting.
maybe I'll
Just
send an email to both of you,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then you
yeah, yeah,
start
perfect.
this.
But no,
Awesome.
if you think to bring somebody in, that's very easy. And maybe this brings me to the last person. This is Christina from Venice. I got to know her last week. Yeah, last week when we went to the site. She's part of a Pioneer Alliance, what is a European University Alliance, actually. And she's from Venice, and welcome here as well. So you briefly want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Philip. Nice to see you all, to meet you all. I'm Cristina Catranotti. I work at UAB University of Venice, and here I focus on food systems, spatial planning, and territorial transition. My research since a few years explores food as a tool for civic participation, situated knowledge production, and socio-ecological regeneration, with particular attention to the lagoon and to peri-urban landscapes. I've coordinated and contributed to several projects that connect urban planning, design, and community-based food practices. One of these is the Food Atlas of the Venice Lagoon, that is a transdisciplinary initiative that maps food ecologies, food networks, and the food system in the Venice Lagoon. Then this project has actually developed into a large Italian network where we are testing food atlases as a tool to support cities and communities to activate urban food policies, to trigger urban food policies. And then other projects I've been involved into and actually coordinating. I'm involved in a project in Vicenza, a town 40 minutes from Venice. And this project is a long-term action research pathway, actually, that explores food and transdisciplinary methodologies to reclaim the urban commons and cultivate ecological practices, also supporting food education and bottom-up collective governance models.
Okay. Yeah, I think there are a lot of sort of cross-references and opportunities. That sounds really super interesting. So, but let me maybe get back to Anna Davis, actually from Trinity College. I came across your name, Anna, when I was doing research on food systems in Barcelona, because you were engaged at least in two large Horizon projects. And I think today you're going to talk a bit about Cultivate, actually. And you've been also initiating or co-organizing or contributing to Sharing City. And to me, this is really valuable that you share your expertise and experience, because I think you've been creating a lot of things that we can build on and that are designed to be built on, from toolboxes on the one hand to maybe modes of sort of collaboration also with policymakers on site to make things happen. Because as said, one of the goals of this roundtable maybe would be to apply for a call. And my ambition then would be to create something that could be that could live longer than the funding of the European Union is. And so I'm keen maybe to hear about your sort of expertise and experience concerning that. So the floor would be yours, Anna.
Thanks, Philip. Yes, I'm delighted to be here today and lovely to meet everyone. There's so many synergies between what you've been saying even this morning, Marta. I'm going to be using some slides from the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact event where we had a policy dialogue a couple of weeks ago. And Anna, the tiny food forest idea sounds fantastic. In Naturescapes project, we're looking at Meraki stepping stone tiny forests, but not necessarily food forests. And we're thinking about these as nature-based solutions in an urban landscape. So lots of potentially interesting things there. The bees stuff, we have in Dublin an organisation called B8. They're in Dublin, the areas of the city are broken up into numbers. So Dublin 8 is an inner city neighbourhood, and they have a neighbourhood beekeeping, beehive kind of association. And one of my team in Cultivate is part of the Irish Bee Association. So there's lots of interest in that area. And I appreciate that it's also complicated in other contexts. And the food as civic participation, I think, really resonates with what we're trying to do here in Cultivate. So I'm just going to share some slides and go through the Cultivate project with you. Now, can you see that? Philip, give me a thumbs up if you can see the slides.
Now we see it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. So yeah, I'm
Perfect.
really happy.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see that?
Yes, now we see the full screen.
Perfect, thank you. So yes, the Innovation Action Project is Cultivate. It's focused on co-designing food sharing for resilience, supporting sustainable urban food sharing. which research has shown that contribute to reducing climate change impacts through reducing food waste, increasing local food production, enhancing biodiversity potentially. So my presentation is really illustrating the pipeline of that research activity from blue skies thinking where I started to the applied research, which is where I'm based currently. And I'm going to start by just setting out some of the drivers behind Cultivate, including the findings of a report I was involved in, commissioned by the Scientific Advice Mechanism in Europe. And I think, Philip, if we're trying to shape the agendas for grants and funding schemes, I think like getting involved in these kinds of activities is a really useful way to get the important issues on the table and included in these kinds of reports. So I'm just going to illustrate the roots of Cultivate in a short presentation, if there's happy to talk about anything now or in another context. And then I'm going to just show you the project's key outcomes, which is essentially a food sharing compass, an online decision support platform to support a range of stakeholders to strengthen, hopefully expand sustainable urban food sharing initiatives. So I don't really need to go through this justification in this context. Certainly the overarching driver behind Cultivate is the unsustainable nature of our food systems. So I'm not going to labour the point here, but certainly system change is needed. But what change, where and how will it be enacted is still up for discussion. And there's lots of work in this area generally, particularly in terms of technical interventions and commercial innovations. But less is focused on the urban and social innovation space and practices. So in response, in the Cultivate project, we're taking food sharing initiatives as our unit of analysis, and food sharing, once seen as the bedrock of human civilization, has been somewhat obscured by food systems which see and govern food only as a commodity. And we argue and Cultivate that the urgency of our situation means options, old, new, need to be reconsidered. And the Cultivate project itself emerged through a pipeline of my research, which has evolved over the past 15 years. So 2008, just before the global crash there, I was able to secure an Environmental Protection Agency grant to look at consumption practices across the island of Ireland. And we focused on everyday practices of moving, heating, eating and washing. And the eating strand of the research included stakeholder and public visioning and backcasting workshops, which really identified a suite of possible food futures. And it was striking to me how much of this collaborative behaviour was envisaged within these positive future scenarios. And this was seen as particularly valuable by the participants. So this, plus the emergence of the sharing platform economies in the sort of mid-2010s onwards, which all were making some rather unsubstantiated claims about sustainability, really underpins the European Research Council proposal that I applied for and got funding. That was called Share City, which really started the ideas being explored. So I was interested to look at current practices of food sharing and their sustainability potential. So not coming in with the idea that they were inherently sustainable necessarily, but exploring what potential did they have. And that really is the cultural, intellectual foundation of the Cultivate project. And the innovation action of Cultivate is focused on implementing, or trying at least to implement, some of those ideas. So the goal of Cultivate is to create more sustainable, resilient and healthy urban and peri-urban food systems, strengthening sustainable food sharing initiatives like community gardens, community kitchens, surplus food redistribution initiatives. And we'll see this as being achieved through this platform, which has a suite of tools and services for a variety of actors, from food sharing initiatives themselves to policymakers, food supply actors, researchers, citizens, and things like that. We have a multi-stakeholder consortium. So we have 9 food sharing initiatives involved as partners in the project, as well as 5 universities, 4 local authorities, a social innovation partner and a communications partner. We're working across 9 sites of innovation, so 3 hub locations, Milan, Barcelona and Utrecht, where we've developed the tools for the compass, and then 6 spoke locations, Dublin, Brighton, Lisbon, Freiburg, Brno and Athens, where the tools are being replicated and refined for general use. And this compass has 5 elements, each of which will be developed through, we worked with work packages, there are different ways to do it, food sharing map, calculator, a menu of good governance focused more on policy, library of citizen engagement and community of practice. So just to give you some brief insight, this map is going to be launched in January 2026. So we're working with a prototype and refining it currently. And the idea here is to develop a more agile means to map, track and monitor landscapes of these food sharing initiatives in cities. Builds on the Share City 100 interactive database that I developed in Share City, where we manually mapped more than 4,000 initiatives across 100 cities internationally, worldwide. But it took 5 of us 5 months to do this, so it was hugely labor intensive. So in Cultivate, we're exploring the role of large language models in helping to automate elements of that search process. We have remaining concerns about the long-term efficacy of this approach. The AI tool is not very good, I'd say. It's very fast, but at the moment it's generating a lot of noise that requires, extensive human cleaning of data and verification, always this kind of hidden element of the magic of AI. But it's learning through the data that we've provided through a European food sharing dictionary and manual mapping that we did in the hub cities, which gave kind of learning data to the tool. So we have much more work to do here on the ethical and sustainability costs of the tool. The food sharing calculator is really focused on supporting food sharing initiatives primarily, but also municipalities and other actors to identify the costs, benefits and impacts related to the work that they do. This draws on and extends and improves some of the sustainability impact assessment tools I developed in Share City. In particular, this co-designed sustainability impact assessment framework for food sharing initiatives, where they can go into the platform, they can register themselves, they can enter data that they collect, and they can get a summary of that data aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals to see where they're hitting their goals themselves and where they're hitting maybe municipal level goals. The menu of good governance. This is being led by the University of Barcelona, Anna Moregas Faust and colleagues there who are really helping to identify and categorize and shape policies that support sustainable food sharing. It was launched at the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact a couple of weeks ago and builds on some of the futuring work that was conducted as part of Share City. The Library of Citizen Engagement is being led by colleagues in Wageningen University, so Jessica Duncan and Una Morrow in particular. And this incorporates the Library of Citizen Engagement. So it's curated really a suite of techniques for engaging publics in food sharing activities. It's available online and also hard copy. So in addition to sort of mining what the existing activities are out there, we've also within the project co-designed some bespoke specific games related to food sharing, which have been integrated into the platform, which is searchable around a variety of characteristics. So depending on what you're looking for, who you're seeking to engage, how much time and resources you have, those kinds of criteria. So it helps make those kinds of selections. And then finally, the community of practice is being led by ICLEI. They're leading our amplification program to help strengthen and expand food sharing initiatives capabilities, creating a community of practice to exchange knowledge and experiences. So activities to date have included kind of webinars, and these are available on the Cultivate webpage. The food sharing initiatives within the project have engaged in buddy visits, sharing experiences face-to-face, action planning. They were resourced through the project, which I think is a really important idea, to give those initiatives actual finance and resources to do something with the project. And now they're really being tasked with expanding, snowballing this community of practice to bring in themselves 10 initiatives each. So by the end of Cultivate project at the end of 2026, we hope to have 100 more food sharing initiatives in that community of practice. And amongst other things, this will involve the use of what's called the Greenhouse Portal in Sharing Solutions, which is a discourse channel where organisations can really come together and discuss their experiences, but also exchange, troubleshoot, and those kinds of things. So really, overall, we hope that the tools produced in Cultivate will provide a kind of one-stop shop for greater understanding of food sharing in contemporary urban European settings and expanding their sustainability potential as one element of an urban food system transformation. So certainly food sharing initiatives are not a panacea for sustainability. Not all food sharing is necessarily sustainable. However, in Cultivate, we will help establish the current reach and impacts and optimize these impacts to achieve their intended outcomes. So ultimately, we're looking to create better understanding of food sharing initiatives, their location, form, impacts and governance, things like that, supporting the development and strengthening of sustainable food sharing initiatives and contributing along the way to the prevention and reduction of food waste through food sharing initiatives. So that's a pretty whistle-stop tour through the Cultivate project, but I was keen to leave some time for questions. I'm happy to expand or elaborate on any elements that are of interest.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Anna. I think this was a super quick tour through all the activities that you are doing, and I think it was super interesting to see how they are interconnected, of course, and building upon each other. I have noted down a couple of questions, but maybe there are questions or comments from other ones here in the group. Okay, if not immediately, I'm going to start. So maybe on a very pragmatic level, I think what you have shown to me very clearly is that you're really trying to bring together a lot of activities and initiatives, including the communities of practice. And I'm also wondering, I mean, including what we're doing here right now, how many networks and sub-networks are somehow doing the same? Maybe without knowing from each other. So what is your notion on that? I mean, is your ambition really to sort of bring all of them together, or do you think that being connected to the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact, what somehow is a reference system for all of us? What is the platform where we all could meet? Are you aiming at sort of really building something that is connecting all the initiatives?
So ideally, yeah, I mean, my thoughts have been for a long time that the impact and contributions made by food sharing initiatives go often unseen and are invisible at anything other than the very hyperlocal scale where they take place. So the people involved obviously have significant impacts, positive impacts often through that process, but they're rarely visible to even the municipal scale, never mind the national scale. Therefore, as a result, they're rarely recognised in policy as providing the important impacts that they do. So my idea is that by bringing together or in some way providing an infrastructure through which these organisations can amplify a collective voice around their activities, because there are a lot of similarities. And
Sure.
I know that contexts are hyper local. And this is not to say there's a one size fit all food sharing initiative that can be cooked and replaced. However, the goals and ambitions are often very, very similar across the board. And therefore, I feel that there's opportunities there to create sort of a greater than the sum of individual parts by coming together and lobbying and advocating with evidence of the impacts that's happening. That was my thinking. So in Ireland, in the Irish context, we have community gardens at Ireland, but there isn't a similar sort of surplus food redistribution or distribution network that they can connect with, or a kind of collective community dining network or whatever. So they're fragmented, the policy's fragmented, the impacts disappear from any decision-making fora. So this was part of the idea behind doing it. It's not going to be easy, as we're seeing even in the Cultivate project. But nonetheless, I feel that given where we're at, we have to try and do something a bit different.
Maybe in connection with that, when I saw first the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact framework, I considered it to be extremely useful. First of all, to really evaluate your own position as an initiative or as a city. But I've seen rarely a city who really went through all the framework, but it really helps to evaluate your position. And would you consider some of your tools ready to be used by other sort of initiatives or municipalities? Because this could be something like a reference to build on. I mean, to immediately start on. So, for example, what could we use from Share City or other initiatives right now, as you said, to amplify, to be visible, but also to compare and to contribute maybe to relevant data that we could collect. So what would be an easy starting point with the frameworks that you've been creating across the two
Yeah,
projects up
yeah.
to now?
I mean, we would say that we took advantage with our policy dialogues to go to the Milan
Sure.
Urban Food Policy Practice. Milan is a partner in the project,
Yeah.
as are the food waste hubs as well. So we were interested in that space, but we felt that so far, at least, there haven't been, as you say, many of the cities have evaluated even what impact them adopting or being a signatory has done. So there's a lack of data there around impacts for sure. And they don't necessarily, and I see this in sort of the global architecture, a lot of the discussion is around bringing in subnational governments, but not necessarily subnational actors in the space. But in terms of the tools that we have, everything is going to be open access, so available to all. The citizen engagement library and the menu for good governance, I believe, are maybe accessible already on the platform, but we're intending to launch in 2026 all the tools. The limitations, of course, are around language in terms of usability. So there are some elements like the sustainability impact assessment, the tool shared component can be translated into German, Spanish, and French, as well as English. But they are available to be used. The issue for us is the marketing, advertising, communications that they exist. And we're working on that with the launch. We will be working and investing in that. But I think often in these projects and in things, this is what we fail to resource sufficiently. If we look into the business world and looking at advertising, the sort of immersive, pervasive advertising around consumption, we kind of need to counter some of that with the other options that are there. So we've got a body of work to do there in terms of ensuring that the people know the tools are there and can be used. The extent to which they're useful for other people will be dependent on whether other users are interested in these kinds of groups. So our challenge is with the municipal level, often if we go to them, they're like, oh yes, we want all food actors mapped, just like that. Our argument is there's a lot already on Google Maps, which indicate commercial side. So you have that if you're interested. What you don't have is often these other kinds of initiatives. So our challenge is to communicate the value of what we're doing in a way which fits in with what people think they need, but also opening their eyes to the fact that there are these kinds of initiatives out there that they need to consider and should incorporate in terms of decision making at subnational and also, we would say, national and even international scale.
Maybe Aguinaldo put a question in the chat, and this would relate to another question that I would have. As you said, you were in a previous step manually mapping the 4,000 initiatives. And I know that there's a huge, they're all the time changing. Some die, others are showing up, and they're in a constant mode of change. And I think the comment that Aguinaldo made, the alternative modes of economic transactions at the local level, this could be something that could be part of actually the thing to be mapped by those 4,000 plus initiatives. I think the question is how to provide a platform that then will be sort of sustainably sort of kept alive by the 4,000 plus initiatives. What are your experiences about that? Because you were referring to LLMs right now to somehow keep it alive. So do you see a chance to get this sort of not only database, but communication platform maybe amongst the stakeholders, the initiatives?
Well, it's going to be an interactive database, so it's going to be openly accessible that people can search through the different cities and through the activities and through the modes of exchange. So each of those initiatives is coded and categorized by what it does and how it does it. So the bartering, gifting, selling, but this is dependent on those initiatives saying that they do these things on their digital profile in order for the tool to pick it up. The tool is about between 30 and 60% as good as a human doing it, but it takes 10, 100 times less time to generate candidates
Mm.
for it. But then there's a huge amount of human labour goes in to check that it's done correctly. And we're going through a process now. With ShareCity, we did the mapping in 2015 and we did similar mapping 2024. What we found in terms of the landscapes in Milan and Barcelona, which were two cities we had mapped in with two different systems, what we found was that the number of food sharing initiatives had doubled in that time. And that very few of those that we had mapped in 2015 were still there in 2025. So there'd been a huge transformation as well as an expansion over that time, probably due to COVID and the disruption that that caused for these kinds of initiatives during that period, and also many other challenges around cost of living crisis in Europe and things like that. So that was a couple of answers. The last part was about the AI tool. So we are committed to maintaining all of the tools in the Compass to 2030. That's our goal. So we are fundraising and have been fundraising already to ensure that the tools can be maintained. Our challenge with the AI tool is that it's so fast moving as a space that it's unclear exactly what kind of costs that's going to generate. And we think we'll probably be able to manage it. But over the 2 years of the project where the AI, we've been working with the AI, it's changed the landscape entirely. So by the time we finish, who knows what that kind of landscape will be. But I would just say that, of course, AI is good at binaries, 1 zeros. But for food sharing initiatives where the boundaries are blurred, where the language used around them is different and culturally specific, it's just not very good yet. How much it can learn from what we're telling it to do is something else.
It's some food for thought to really think about. And could I bring my own initiative in this platform? Okay, I will give it a try
So the
and
idea
see.
is that so because we know that it's not a complete picture, part of the issue is communicating. Is your initiative here? Is your city here? Then we can expand with engagement through others. Now, finding the right platform to do that is a challenge because we used to use Twitter when it was Twitter. Now it's not the place where these organizations generally hang out necessarily. LinkedIn tends to be too professional sometimes for these kinds of spaces. So it's not necessarily as easy as we would have done before. But through that calling out, you could come to me, I could manually add your initiative to a city if it's already mapped, or if the city is not mapped and we get support from a municipality to do additional mapping, then we can expand that way.
I'm going to have a closer look on that because, for example, I just know the Edible City platform, and they had a huge database. They had a lot of people and initiatives in there, and then the funding stopped, and nobody knows what exactly will happen with that right now. And I think initiatives do not want to submit their initiative in 2 or 3 or 4 platforms, but I think you have a huge amount of initiatives in already. So there was a virtual hand from Babette right now with a question or a comment.
Yes, a small question. Thank you, Anna, for sharing your project, which was very interesting and inspiring. And I'm looking forward to see the map in January when you launch it. So it would be great you could share the link maybe in this group to have a look. So my background is psychology. I'm organization and social psychologist, and I'm interested in how engagement, how ownership emerges. So I was wondering when you presented your research, whether it's what I understood and what is already very interesting is it's more a descriptive approach, right? To collect what is there and what do initiatives or the communities of practice do, where they are to make them visible. Are you as well interested, or did you have a look or some kind of description of how they started, how they emerged, what was the driver to get into it, something like this?
Yeah, so in the ShareCity project, which was the project before Cultivate, that's where the kind of in-depth ethnography kind of approach with initiatives. So we did 6 urban locations with researchers based in those locations for 6 months and immersing themselves with these organizations and exploring exactly those kinds of ideas. So that was certainly part of understanding what the goals are of the
Mm-hmm.
of these organizations, and then the sustainability impact assessment is brought in to help those organizations understand if they're meeting their goals, are they having impacts in the areas that their goals and ambitions want them to have. And within that, so the citizen engagement library was really motivated by the fact that it's, what are the approaches that can be used to try and engage people in different contexts around different types of activities in very different urban environments. So it's an interesting idea. It's a very interesting idea that we've kind of looked at in a granular sense before, and now we're kind of moving into the kind of trying to provide some tools to support others to go off
to support the initial phase for others.
Yeah. So the cost benefit calculator is also to set out, well, if you're setting up a garden or a kitchen, these are the kind of costs you have to consider. These are the kind of benefits that have been identified. And if you want to understand your impacts, come to this portion of the calculator tool.
Thank you.
The impacts also include or map somehow the impacts that you can generate through education. So this is a question that I'm having right now because, of course, I think we all have to struggle with communicating what are the potential impacts. And there's always the prejudice like, okay, an urban food, whatever site production garden can never feed the city. However, what are the leverage points? And one of the leverage points I think that are increasingly important are education of working together with schools at a very primary moment. So would you consider this as well, or did you consider this as well if you're talking about impact for the moment?
Yeah. So the toolshed has 108 indicators under social, economic, environmental governance pillars. So there are indicators that you can select around educational events. And I mean, at the minute, you can add in numbers of people that you reach through your events, or you can add in a qualitative description of the events that you undertake. So it's possible for those to be noted within the toolshed.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it would be super interesting once you have this huge amount of indicators, and I think each initiatives might pick just a few of them. And I think to support an initiative in what they're doing, how to find their very, very specific way of sort of creating impact, what might be different from case to case. So for example, there has been a big call in Germany right now for civic engagement, which whatever you do. And as a matter of evidence, in the last 2 years, many projects that are working around food production and gardening were applying to be supported. And we've been supported right now as well, because it is well understood that those initiatives can foster a specific type of sort of civic engagement. And I know that many initiatives, including our sister initiative in Cologne, was dealing with the topic of commoning and was dealing with the topic of how to create this type of ownership, and maybe also refer to a bit what sort of Babette says, sort of what is the motivation to engage and how do we increase this type of motivation. So I think this might be another important focus point that some of us could have a look at.
Yeah, so you can register if you let me know, or you want to register, it comes through to an email, then it gets approved, then you can have a look around the toolshed. I've put in the chat there just the link to the website, Sharing Solutions website. You just go to the toolshed, click on that, and then it will ask you to register. And we do get there are some bots and things that come in. So if you put in like Philip test Anna, or something like that, or let us know what you're registering as, then we can approve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Great. So a lot of various sort of tangible aspects sort of from my side that we can sort of use and refer to. Pretty encouraging. And it's great to see what you've been sort of achieving up to now. And that's another.
Thanks so much. I'm going to have to drop off, but
Okay.
I think what's key and what's crucial, like moving forward for European funding, is to really resource in the funding budget for this dissemination communication piece. It's essentially like advertising it, because the tendency is there's so much to do. You spend a lot of the budget on doing that, and then you don't have any time and resources to actually kind of maintain it. And luckily, with some of the tools like the good governance, citizen engagement, they're very low cost to maintain. But there's this constant payoff between the more complex a tool is, the more expensive and resource heavy it is to maintain. The simpler, the easier. But then, I personally was also fed up with seeing lots of PDFs from as project outputs, or like you say, a great platform that then goes in 2 years. And that's a real struggle to ensure that these
Yes.
get sort of integrated or are infrastructured in some way.
Good comment, but big challenge. So thank you.
But
You
thanks
have to
very
leave.
much. Yeah.
No, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing, so we can stay a
Anna,
bit.
is it possible just to ask you a quick question, just
Yeah,
for
go for
clarity
it.
on the last point you made? So are you looking, I'm sorry, I actually missed your presentation, but are you looking at this as an ongoing resource that, for example, when we fund other projects, we put some budget into it, for example, to support the ongoing maintenance of the sharing solutions kind of database system, whatever you call it?
Yeah.
Is that the kind of model that you're working on or hoping to?
We're exploring lots of models for sustainability or sustaining the platform post-project. Currently, we have a person in the team who's looking into that. So at the minute, it's the tool developers who are resourcing it to 2030. So
Right.
we're
Great.
raising money through grants or through master students helping or whatever we can do to maintain our tools. That's what we're doing. But if we want to expand or rejuvenate or do anything else, we're going to have to raise money. One of the options is that users pay peppercorn kind of rent or usage in a kind of crowdfunding way. We yet watch this space. We haven't come up with anything specific yet.
I would encourage you to consider the model that I just spoke of. There are other databases that are maintained like that seem to work quite well.
Yeah, so we have a couple of the partners in the current project are applying for other funding, and they have costed in some part to maintain, to have a compass manager, for example, for 1 day a week for the 4-year periods. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you very much, Anna, and goodbye. See you maybe next time. Great. Yeah. So I think we have a couple of minutes. Some people need to drop out. I just know that our next host or presenter, Claire, are you still there? Needs to leave as well in a couple of minutes. So just to let you know, in the next December meeting, Claire will talk about a review of urban food forest garden dynamics in the French cities. And I think this refers to quite a few of us, and just to relate to also what Anna said at an earlier moment, for those of you who cannot afford which way ever to really take care of vegetable or sort of fruit in urban gardens. So this type of food forest might be a quite nice initiative, and I think we could have a lot of conversations around. However, yeah, are there any more sort of immediate comments or questions we could discuss before closing for today? I see no hands, but some hungry faces maybe. Yeah. So no, Francesca.
I just came to my mind. It's not completely relevant for all of us, but because I see Marta, and I was thinking about from Polimi, and I was thinking about writing an email to some Polimi colleague. But there's something that came out a couple of days ago, which apply in this specific case and call for Italy, because it comes from the MAECI, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But I know that it happens with other countries in Europe, so maybe it could be explored. Is a joint, like, is a sort of like a similar scheme to what is the Horizon Europe, and Ministry of Science and Technology of China, and in this case, it's Foreign Affairs Office with the research and innovation money that are matched with the Natural Science Foundation, which is the other second big scheme. And so it is international cooperation project with local, like national level network, because the money will come from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also with the possibility of like multi-country collaboration. So I wanted to send an email. I mean, I will send an email to some polemic colleague, and maybe Marta, at this point, I can also add you to this, so you can take a look, because one of the topic in which they encourage collaboration is agri-food. So there is like a specific interest in this thing, and I think that maybe if Europe, like for all the other countries in Europe, you can try to figure it out who is the like when or who is the ministry level. Sometimes it's like a research and university, sometimes it's foreign affairs, but the Chinese counterpart is National Science Foundation, NSFC, and that could be, you know, a way to explore possible. They're quite like they're not super big scale like or like Horizon Europe, but they're quite interesting research and innovation projects. So maybe I'll also, when I write to the email, I can also add this reference, and then we can see if it's 2028. So I assume that polls will come out from different countries like soon.
Yeah, I think that sounds really good. And even if we started with conversations about a Horizon call, I think even the small calls are super interesting to bring together sort of like-minded people and exchange around certain topics.
I think your voice is breaking.
I think now my connection is unstable.
Hello, Philip.
I'm still there. Can
Yeah,
you
it's
see?
very unstable. So we haven't heard the last things you've said.
Okay, I'm switching off. Can you hear me now?
No?
Yeah, you're there. We can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah?
No,
Yes.
yes. Sorry, this is the hotel lobby thing. No, just a reference to that. I mean, even if we came together to think about joining for a Horizon call, I just want to encourage, even for smaller things amongst a couple of us, to because I think we clearly see the complementarity, whether it's around bees, whether it's around citizen engagement, to really share and collect and use those meetings to see if we find a like-minded partner we can learn from or work together with in the near future. Okay, so before my internet connection drops out, it worked quite well until now.
Absolutely.
So I try to switch on.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. See you next 4 weeks.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Philip.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Professor
guys.
Philippe. Bye,
And
guys.
drink a Camineri in my name, please, Philip.
Yes, I will. I will, Aguinaldo. Okay. Bye bye. Thank you for joining. See you in a month.
Enough.